back to the news at 10. As civil servants look forward to earning their first new minimum wage of 30,000 naira, the governor of Enugu State, David Umahi, says a joint negotiation committee has been set up by his government to review the mode of payment. I beg your pardon, the governor of Ebonyi State, that's David Umahi. Now, the governor was speaking at the quarterly media chat where he gave an account of his government's policies, programs and achievements. This is also a prelude to his second-term inauguration as the state governor for another 4 years. He says his administration has so far built over 1,000 kilometers of roads across the state, among other infrastructure in Ebonyi.
But we are closer to Abia State. Quite a lot of us are closer to Abia State. This airport is not for prestige, it is for business. So we believe that if we build the airport, we will have much more customers than the Enugu airport. And it's very important. And the location of the airport is about 70 minutes from the Enugu airport. And moreover, we are building for tomorrow. What we are doing in Ebonyi State is what I may consider that there is a need to prepare for tomorrow. A time will come where if you don't build a port now in Ebonyi State, you must need it tomorrow. This is why we are building the airport. Is my project priority project or prestige project? The projects are both.
Let's cross over to some business news. Here's Kayode Okikiolu.
You First. First Bank.
Ijoma, and you're welcome to Business News. The shares of MTN Nigeria lost 10 naira today, falling to 130 naira from its opening price of 140 naira. And this comes on the back of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission's visit to MTN headquarters on Friday, asking for information and documents relating to the telco's shares listing on May the 16th. Now, speaking on the FCC's action, the CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, says that the anti-graft agency has the right to look into companies' books, but interagency cooperation is needed.
The Director General of the Security and Exchange Commission is on the board of the EFCC. So you can see there's a lack of coordination. And agencies in Nigeria must not behave in a manner as if to give the impression that this is a shakedown. Because that is, one can wrongfully come to the conclusion because of the curious nature of the investigation, the curious timing on a Friday afternoon of sealing up the company MTN. It's actually going to deter other investors, other companies from listing. And people, as a matter of fact, in the last 12 companies, I think, have delisted. 5 companies have delisted in the last 12 months, while only 2 companies have listed, that is Notoria and MTN. By MTN listing, our stock market capitalization has increased to almost 13 trillion naira. And that itself is significant. It's about 10% of market capitalization. If MTN or if Glo and Airtel were to list and other oil companies were to list, we could actually push the level of market capitalization to a point which makes it attractive. Markets are judged by the size of market capitalization and the level of trading that is going on. If we do things that will scare people, right, then we are actually cutting our noses to spite our faces. It doesn't make sense. I think there should be coordination. The DG of the SEC is on the board of EFCC. The EFCC has a right to go into companies if they perceive that there's wrongdoing. But that wrongdoing has to be reported, not just by headlines and newspaper headlines, which have no basis for any suspicion at all.
And staying with the NSE, the stock market commenced the final week of May on a negative note as investors booked profit on bellwether stocks such as MTN, Dangote Cement and Union Bank. Here's Akaite Afia with some more details.
welcome to the Stock Market Report. All the excitement surrounding the listing of MTN Nigeria seems to have tapered after the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission's raid of the telco's headquarters on Friday. The first trading day after the news broke was not too good as the index nosedived 2.22%. When you look at the sectoral chart, you see that only 2 of the sectors we tracked closed negative, showing that today's decline was largely from MTN. Interestingly, the banking sector added 1.02%, consumer goods gained 0.73%, and insurance was up 0.04%. The list of top trades shows the shares of lenders such as Fidelity, Access, and UBA as the most traded for the day. Volume and volume of deals traded were relatively low, as 148 million shares worth 2.21 billion naira changed hands in over 3,654 deals. As it is now, the outlook may seem daunting, but you never can tell. Things may just turn around. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Akaite Afia.
Thank you, Akaite. On the global scene, markets were upbeat on Monday in the wake of EU elections, as Asian stocks closed higher and Africa closed mixed. Meanwhile, the U.S. markets shut their door today to observe the Memorial Holiday. Let's show you some more highlights. Thank you for watching Business News Tonight. I am Kayode Okikiolu. The news at 10 continues with Ijeoma.
You First. First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Kayode. Let's get a wrap-up of international stories. Salman Pusey is standing by with Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. European politics has seen a major shift today as centre-right and centre-left blocs in the European Parliament lost their combined majority in the EU elections. The Liberal and the Green parties had a good night, while nationalists were victorious in Italy, France and the UK. Turnout in the election was the highest for 20 years, bucking decades of decline. It is the second largest democratic election in the world. It is also one of the most complicated. Last night, 751 MEPs were elected to the European Parliament in a vote that takes place every 5 years.
So those 3 topics will...
There are lots of talking points, but the biggest takeaway is a complete rejection of the status quo. The people of Europe turning away from the mainstream blocs, instead embracing parties and personalities they feel better represent their values. The Brexit Party didn't exist until 6 weeks ago, but Nigel Farage's creation stormed to victory, securing around 32% of the vote at the expense of the Conservatives and the Labour Party.
We are the biggest party in the European Parliament, coming from the whole of Europe, and what we want to do is play an active role, take some responsibility. We have got a mandate now, and we want the government to include us in their negotiating team. We have got to get ready for leaving the European Union on October the 31st. There's an awful lot we can do.
In second place, a party fighting for the exact opposite.
Every vote for the Liberal Democrats is a vote to stop Brexit.
The Liberal Democrats took over 18% of the vote. In Germany, both major centrist parties suffered, while Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party in France celebrated victory over Mr. Macron's party, securing 24% of the vote. It was a good night for the Greens. Their number of MEPs more than doubled from 3 to 7, as its share of the vote increased by 4.6% to 12.5%.
If you would have asked me yesterday morning about the best possible election result, I would have told you a number far below the actual election result. It has outdone all our expectations and makes us feel humble. It is a mandate. It's an incredible leap of faith in us, more than ever before on the national level.
EU citizens turned out to vote in the highest numbers for 2 decades. While the results show how divided Europe is, it also shows a fervour for political change, with immigration and the environment top of the agenda for many voters. US President Donald Trump has become the first foreign dignitary to meet the new Japanese emperor. Mr. Trump sat and spoke to Emperor Naruhito alongside his wife Melania and the Japanese Empress. Naruhito inherited the throne after his father Akihito stepped down in the first abdication by a Japanese emperor in 2 centuries. It's all part of his visit to Japan aimed at boosting trade. Earlier, the American president visited a sumo wrestling contest with the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe before presenting a trophy to the winner. 2 Thai political parties have met leaders of a pro-army party to discuss a possible deal to keep military government Chief General Prayuth Chan-o-cha on as Prime Minister. It comes more than 2 months after a disputed election. The deal would be the end of opposition hopes to keep the military out of politics 5 years after the NCPO seized power from the elected government on May the 22nd in 2014. Climbers returning from Mount Everest say too many people trying to climb the world's highest peak in too short a time span is the reason to blame for a spate of deaths this season. A British climber too weak to descend from Mount Everest died on Saturday. He was the 8th climber to die on the world's tallest mountain during the current climbing season. Hiking officials attributed most of the deaths to weakness, exhaustion and delays.
There's so many people who want to do it and who train, and I think maybe there should be a limit on how many people go up each day, because you only have a limited supply of oxygen, and if you're tired, you're tired. You might make it to the top, but you still have to make it down. That's the problem.
The prominent Kenyan writer Binyavanga Wainaina has died in Nairobi at the age of 48. The author won the Kane Prize for African Writing in 2002 for his short story Discovering Home. Wainaina was well known for his satirical essay How to Write About Africa. In 2014, Time magazine named him one of the 100 most influential people. And finally, a Kenyan wildlife park has introduced new technology to help protect against poaching. Kenya's Olbejeta Conservancy has partnered with a telecom company to enable them to keep better track of the animals and reduce any human-to-animal conflict. Using the Internet of Things, a system which extends internet connectivity in physical devices, rangers can now remotely monitor wildlife movements at any time. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thanks a lot, Simon. Technology can be amazing. And still ahead on the news at 10, Banner Model from Rivers State wins season 11 of Channel's International Kids Cup after beating Adetunji Primary School from Kwara 1-0 in the final. That's on sports. Just stay with us.